Clover offers an expansive REST API that allows developers to create web apps that get data from or make changes to Clover merchants. Merchants, of course, don't want just anyone messing around with their data, so each API request requires an access token. Merchants can create an API token via the web dashboard to access their own data. Developers, on the other hand, will need to create an access token programmatically via their apps. This allows for a secure token handoff. Each app specifies which Clover permissions it requires. Permissions like reading merchant inventory or creating orders. A merchant will grant an app's requested permissions when they connect to the app. The API access token that results from this connection is specific to the merchant and the app. It represents a handshake more than a login. On one side, the app requests certain permissions, and on the other, the merchant agrees to share access to those permissions. So far so good, but we skipped a step. How do you generate that API access token? It's sensitive data, so Clover uses the OAuth 2.0 security framework for this process. You need to verify both that the merchant has actually granted your app access to their data, and that it really is your app requesting an access token. We'll go over what this OAuth flow will look like and how you can implement it into your app. First, let's create a new sandbox app. We're only using the REST API in this app, so we'll just select Web as the app type. Make sure to select any permissions your app might need. For example, a simple inventory insights app might need merchant read, inventory read and write, and orders read to see what's selling. Enter in your app's site URL. This should be a public endpoint your server controls. And make sure the default OAuth response is set to code. We're not going to worry about the token response type in this video. It's intended only for client-based apps in Sandbox, so it has a limited use. While you're here, go ahead and take note of both your app's UUID, the 13-character alphanumeric code on your app card, and your app secret. You'll need them later in the OAuth process. You can then install your app to your test merchant. View your app's market listing, select Preview an App Market, and click Connect. This is, of course, only the developer side flow of the merchant install process. So let's shift focus for a minute to go over what the connection process will feel like for the merchant. The OAuth process really covers two main flows. One where authentication begins from Clover, and one where authentication begins from your app. Merchants can find new apps from the app market, or more tools. When they see one they want to install, they connect to the app from its app market page. If it's a web app, Clover redirects this merchant to the app's listed site URL. The app flow is handed over to you. Merchants may also start from your end. A new merchant might discover your Clover integration from your platform, or you might need a refreshed access token. In these instances, you can redirect to Clover to begin the authentication flow. Clover prompts the merchant to sign in. The merchant also chooses which location they want to use if they have more than one. If they're new to your app, they'll need to connect the app to their account. Once Clover has verified who the merchant is and that the merchant has installed your app, Clover redirects back to you. Wherever the merchant starts out when they initiate that first connection, they can also always go back to your app from the Clover dashboard. They can return to the app's app market page from their installed apps, or find your app directly on their sidebar. This again directs the merchant to your site URL. Because these flows cover different highly used scenarios, you will likely want to handle both of the flows in your app. With that overview, let's dig into the implementation details. Whether a merchant begins on Clover or your app, the overall OAuth implementation will be very similar. Starting from your app simply involves an extra step: merchant authorization. At this point, you might not know this merchant. You might not know their Clover ID. And since they're coming from outside Clover, neither does Clover. So you'll need to redirect to Clover's OAuth authorize endpoint. Note that the base URL of this redirect and any following requests will depend on your environment. Since we're testing in Sandbox, it's sandbox.dev.clover.com. Add in your app's UUID as the client ID parameter so Clover knows which app is making the request. You may have noticed we're using Python for this example, but the OAuth flow itself is language agnostic. You can find OAuth examples in our other languages on our GitHub, linked below. After Clover verifies the merchant, you can start following the same programmatic flow for both use cases. Whether the merchant came directly from the Clover dashboard or just signed in to verify your app's request, Clover will direct the merchant back to your listed site URL. The app flow is back in your hands, and you'll have several new parameters attached to your URL. The merchant ID parameter will provide the merchant's 13-character unique Clover ID. Most of your future API requests will require this in the URL, so hang on to it. The employee ID provides information on which of the merchant's employees actually opened the app this session. This can be useful if you want to provide or hide certain functionality for managers or admins versus individual contributors. Client ID is your app UUID again. You can have multiple apps with the same site URL. Clover repeating your app ID back to you can help you keep your apps organized with such a setup. And you get a code. This is the verification from Clover that the merchant has your app, but it cannot be used to access merchant data by itself. For that, you need to verify this is a legitimate access request from your app. Send a GET request to Clover's OAuth token endpoint. Your parameters should include, once again, your app ID, the authorization code you just received, and finally your app secret, listed as the client secret. Handshake complete, you'll receive a JSON response with a single field, your access token. Congratulations. Now to make use of your newfound access to merchant data. Let's grab some information on the latest orders to see what items are selling. If we try to run the request first without providing our access token, we'll get a 401 unauthorized response back. Then, when we add our access token as an authorization bearer header, we successfully retrieve our desired data as a JSON response. One size does not always fit all, so we provide some options to customize the OAuth process to fit your needs. For example, we have optional parameters on that first merchant authorization URL. Our docs have the full list, but one notable option is the merchant ID parameter, which lets the merchant skip the step to choose between their locations. This can streamline the process when you already know the merchant's Clover ID, such as if you're refreshing a token. Another optional parameter is redirect URI. You can use this parameter to ask Clover to redirect the merchant back to a different URL when they're done with authorization. Keep in mind that your redirect URI must be a subpath of your existing site URL. Clover also supports more than web apps. While a detailed look at creating Clover Android apps sounds like another video, it's important to note that you can mix and match app types. One app might have both an Android and a web component. Say you have such an app and expect merchants to use the app on their device first. Once they open the Android app, you can start using the Android SDK right away. But what about the REST API? You might not want to wait for the merchant to go through OAuth on the web to start using API requests. Since we can authorize the merchant and your app's legitimacy automatically on the device, you can generate an OAuth token with the Android SDK. Clover OAuth's authenticate method returns an auth result object, which in turn contains a string auth token. You can pass this auth token back to the website of your app to start making your API requests. This might not fully replace the need for web OAuth, but implementing both can give you some options. However you configure your web app, whether paired with an Android APK, streamlined with optional parameters, or using vanilla OAuth, Clover provides tools to customize how you authenticate. And after authentication, our REST API is open for business. We look forward to seeing what you build.